Good day, everyone. Welcome back. Today we're going to go over some fine details when it comes to the authentication process of the birth certificate and why it is important. This is a process that is not too extensive. It doesn't take long. However, it does depend on the pandemic that's going around in the United States, how fast these offices are operating to get documents returned back to us. But I would say it should take you no longer than 30 days to 45 days to complete this process. Now, why this is important? Well, if you are trying to get to the zero file list when it comes to tax exemption, you definitely want to have this in your pocket. And I will explain why shortly, or and how. So as we know, we've created a foreign trust. We've received our specific 98 prefix EIN number, which has been automatically placed on the zero file list as an entity that is foreign from the jurisdiction of the United States. Therefore, it is not a U.S. person. And we have the right to place within that trust our social, which was converted into an estate. That estate then went into the trust, and that covers all of the income that was generated from our social security number, all of the benefits that are currently with social programs, Medicare, workers' comp, social security, things of that nature. All of those are considered uncertificated securities. We also have our LLCs, our S and C corporations that go inside that trust. And so those entities are tax exempt as well. But we need to take it a step further, and we need to make sure that we secure those monies or assets that were acquired in our lifetime under that social security number, such as a mortgage. Okay, so it's going to start with the authentication process of your birth certificate. You need to understand that they issue these certificates on banknote paper. Sometimes you may see the actual banknote recording number. Okay, so this is mine. I've stamped it, reconveyed, gifted, and liened. I reconveyed it, I gifted it, and I liened it. Gifted to the trust, and the trust placed a lien on this property. You have to understand that this certificate is like a Federal Reserve note. It's cash, and the United States use these as an exchange. Okay, you first have to understand why they are doing this. The United States is bankrupt. Okay, all of the above was published in the Congressional Record, March 17, 1993, Volume 33, page H, 1303. This is by Senator James Traficant Jr. Now check this out. He's going to explain in his own words, as he's having a congressional hearing, to the speaker at this time about the current bankruptcy. Now, you can only have a bankruptcy if you are a corporation. Okay, only artificial entities can file bankruptcy. So when you file bankruptcy because of the lack of ability to pay off a debt, you are coming in as first name, middle name, last name, the name that is on the birth certificate. You see, I was born November 8, 1987. However, the registrar recorded my avatar in commerce, date accepted for registration December 23rd. This is the beginning date that my corporation began. What is the name of that corporation? Avery Duval Cottrell Corporation. Believe it or not, that's what it is. Okay, so when you file bankruptcy, that is what's going to be on the case documents. And it's the same thing for the United States government. Let's go here, 28 USC. You're going to see, I've showed this before Section 15A, the United States means a federal corporation. So only a corporation can file for bankruptcy. I also want to show you this before we get back to that congressional record. Here is the actual certificate of incorporation for the United States Corporation Company. They have detailed what they can and what they cannot do. This is their job right here: to prepare or cause to be prepared, and procure, that means to take, to be filed, recorded, registered, published, issued, or granted in accordance with law, articles or certificates of incorporation, applications for letters of patent, charters, and other instruments relating to the incorporation and organization for corporations and joint stock companies. Okay, they're going to also prepare statements, applications for licenses, the DMV, to do business, or other instruments in relation to domestic and foreign corporations. So you can find this by typing in United States Corporation Company, and you're going to type the date. This is the only way to find this document. You're going to type the date. I believe it's July 15th, 1925, and you're going to find this registration number, 100,009, and then put the words PDF at the end, and you'll be able to find this document. Now, this was registered in 1925, just before the bankruptcy of 1933. That means they knew this was going to happen. This was on the table. They were going to file bankruptcy, and this is where we start to get the issuance of uncertificated securities, such as social security numbers. Okay? And you'll find the actual owners. This entire company began off of $100. And yet they owe $22 trillion, and guess who's paying it? The citizens. Those who have acquiesced and do not understand that they are truly nationals of the state they were born in. You were born in New Hampshire, you are a New Hampshireite. You were born in California, you're a California national. Just like you say an Italian national. It's the same thing. But if you consider yourself a U.S. citizen, you are now responsible for all the debt that they are placing upon you as one of their corporations, or should I say sub-corporations. The owners is right here: Harry O. Coughlin, Samuel B. Howard, Arthur W. Brighton. Now, this was done back in 1925. I know they're, maybe some are still here, but I rest assured we have new officers in these positions today. And a lot of them are overseas, Morocco, China, other countries. So that's the Articles of Incorporation, just like how you would have your own when you set something up with your Secretary of State. So they have done the same thing. They've created a corporation using the same name that's on your birth certificate, and they used this certificate as a bond to trade back and forth with other countries. And let's see how this began. We're going to go to this bankruptcy statement by the senator. Let's read here. United States Congressional Record, March 17, 1993, Volume 33, page H1303. Speaker, Senator James Traficant, Jr. of Ohio, addressing the House. Mr. Speaker, we are here now in Chapter 11. Members of Congress are official trustees presiding over the greatest reorganization of any bankrupt entity in world history, the U.S. government. We are setting forth, hopefully, a blueprint for our future. There are some who say it is a coroner's report that will lead to our demise. It is an established fact that the United States federal government has been dissolved by the Emergency Banking Act of March 9, 1933, 48 Stat 1, Public Law 89-719, declared by President Roosevelt, being bankrupt and insolvent. House Joint Resolution 192, 73rd Congress, Session June 5, 1933. Joint resolution to suspend the gold standard and abrogate the gold clause dissolved the sovereign authority of the United States and the official capacities of all United States government offices, officers, and departments, and is further evidence that the United States federal government exists today in name only. That's because the Republic, the Confederation, the United States of America has been dissolved. And that was established in the year 1787. 2 years later, 1789, that Republic Constitution was changed to a democratic in 1789, into a democracy. It says, the receivers of the United States bankruptcy are the international bankers via the United Nations, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund. All United States offices, officials, and departments are now operating within a de facto status in name only under emergency war powers. That means every single president that we have had since the initial, the initial emergency war, what does it say here? The Emergency Banking Act of 1933. Every single president we've had since then has been acting as if we are in war and utilizing the citizens to pay for everything that war consists of. It's an excuse. It's like in the Matrix. You are the battery to fund and provide the energy, the labor for everything. 40, 40, 40. 40% labor, 40% earnings, and 40% retirement. The power of three. With the constitutional Republican form of government now dissolved, the receivers of the bankruptcy have adopted a new form of government for the United States. This new form of government, now as a democracy, being an established socialist communist order under a new governor for America. They just told you that democracy is socialist and communist. It's fraud and unjust. This act was instituted and established by transferring and or placing the office of the Secretary of Treasury to that of the governor of the International Monetary Fund. Do you see that? Your U.S. Secretary of Treasury is a pawn. He doesn't do anything. He makes you believe he's doing something, but he is a proxy. Just like we set up your sole trustee to create that your trust is foreign, who hires you as the co-trustee, you are the proxy for them so that way you can control your trust. It's the same thing. The true owners of this United States federal corporation is the International Monetary Fund. They have a governor who is truly pulling the strings. However, they're hiding behind the U.S. Secretary of Treasury. The U.S. Secretary of Treasury receives no compensation for representing the United States. Wow. So you can continue reading. This is a very interesting read. Now, after 1933, this Bankruptcy Act, because there's no money, how is the government going to operate off of some type of form of money or currency? This is why they instituted the Securities and Exchange Commission I mentioned before. They did this the very next year in 1934. They're bartering with your labor and holding you responsible for the debt. If my son or daughter is born tomorrow, 30 days later, I get a birth certificate for them. The registrar in that county registers their name as a sub-corporation within the United States corporation system. They then take that certificate of live birth and trade it to one of the top 5 countries that own the United States debt. So far we have Japan is number 1, China, Ireland, Luxembourg. So that's 1, 2, we have United Kingdom, that's 3, 4, China, and number 5, Japan. Those birth certificates are going to be traded on the stock market or the Forex, foreign exchange market, with these countries. And they will issue a bond, and then the U.S. takes that bond down to the U.S. Treasury. They print the money, and guess who is backing it up? The Federal Reserve Bank. And so they collect taxes, and that money is going to the Federal Reserve when they drew a check that had nothing in it. All of their checks bounce because of nothing in it. So who's funding this entire thing? We are, the people, and we don't know it. So you have to understand that it's cash. Now, you can take control of that certificate. Very much so. Looking at my birth certificate, it says the state of California. Nowhere on here does it say the United States of America or the United States. Some will say United States of America. That's fine. That's the Republic. That's what you want. But it would never say United States alone. And we know the United States is DC. Your birth certificate is proof of your nationality. I am a Californian national. Okay? What you must do, if your birth certificate, let's say it doesn't say the state of California, or it doesn't say a vital record of vital statistics. If it does not say that, and it didn't come from the Department of Public Health vital statistics, most likely it came from your county's office. If it comes from your county, the very first thing that you need to do is search within your county services a process called exemplification. Exemplification. Okay? You first take your document there, and a clerk of that office will provide you a seal. This is your first level of authentication, and it's called exemplification. Once you have that, you can move forward to the next step. If your birth certificate looks like mine, it has your state name on there, Department of Public Health, it says vital records, things of that nature, you can skip that part and go straight to what I'm about to say. So you then send your birth certificate to your Secretary of State so that he or she can authenticate the registrar's signature right here, or the registrar's seal. My registrar at the time was James Green, okay, and he authenticated it March 20th, 2017. So then I have to take this to the next level up, which is the Secretary of State, and they will authenticate that he was in his rightful place to do this seal. So let's look, for example, let's do Massachusetts. I think I have that one up here. Yes, so let's search Massachusetts authentication. There's usually going to be a cover form. Some states call it a apostille. Some call it an authentication or certification. It means the same thing. So this is what you would do. You would fill this form out, date of request, country in which the documents will be used. I'm going to come back to this. You're going to put your name here. There is no firm information. And you're going to check the fees. So it looks like it's going to be $6 per document. So you have one document and you'll put $6. You're going to select first class mail. If you do that, you have to include a self-addressed stamped envelope inside your envelope. So that way they can use that to send it back to you. Or you can do express mail, however you want to do it. Or if you're close, you can just drop it off and pick it up. They can do it the same day. You're going to mail it to either one of these offices. Very simple. $6 to do it. Okay, now let's talk about the country in which the documents will be used. You have to select what's called a non-Hague Convention country in order to do authentication. Why? We have several countries around the world that are in league with a treaty law that deals with adoptions. So Japan is within the Hague Convention treaty with the United States. So if I was going to move to Japan, I wouldn't need to authenticate my birth certificate at all. I can just take my California birth certificate and go to Japan, and they will accept that as proof of record that I exist in some system. But let's say I go to Taiwan or Thailand. Well, they do not have a treaty or agreement with the United States within the Hague Convention. So they are going to require, if I wanted to move there and show proof that I exist in some system, that I'm not a ghost, they are going to require that I authenticate my birth certificate with the United States government on all three levels, county, state, and federal. And then I can bring that document to them, and therefore I can now obtain assets, property, and things of that nature there. Now, that sounds pretty easy to understand, but it goes further than that. We are authenticating for this process of U.S. tax exemption because the law says the one who holds the true certified copy of the birth certificate has the right to do what's called a creditor's legal process. And a creditor's legal process means if someone is coming after your assets, saying you owe them a debt, what they're really coming after, they're challenging who is holding that certificate of title so that they can come after the assets. If your trust is the owner and holder of that certificate of title and has placed a lien on that title, then your trust has first right of claim. It's called first in line, first in time. Okay, it's just like with the banks. When they are trying to foreclose, what are they using? They're using the promissory note. They're using the date that you signed it. If you bought two houses, a house after that, and you file bankruptcy, you can't pay on both of them. They're going to make you sell the houses, and the proceeds from it is going to go to the creditors. Now, who's going to get the first dibs? The one that has the promissory note signed before the other. That's how the judge is going to rule. Anything left over, the second creditor gets, and if they are still having an unpaid balance, well, they're going to come after additional assets or proceed to some type of garnishment on you or a lien on the next piece of property that you get. That's how that works. It's the same process with your trust and the IRS when it comes to taxes. If they're coming at you for an old debt, they're challenging the certificate of title. Okay, first let's look at the rule. Minnesota Court Rules, Rule 220. And they're talking about birth certificates. This is the only state that gives up the evidence on this. Let's read. The registrar of titles is authorized to receive for registration. For me, it would be James Green. Remember his name on my birth certificate. He is authorized to receive for registration of memorials upon any outstanding certificate of title and official birth certificate pertaining to a registered owner named in said certificate of title. You see, they called the birth certificate a certificate of title. This is the title to your body, the title to your commercial avatar in business. you are in a commercial business because it exists within a U.S. corporation. This is the title to your sub-corporation known as first name, middle name, last name. That's the world we live in. Showing the date of birth of said registered owner, providing there is attached to the said birth certificate an affidavit of an affiant who states that she is familiar with the facts recited, stating that the party named in said birth certificate is the same party as one of the owners named in said certificate of title, and that thereafter the registrar of titles shall treat said registered owner as having attained the age of majority at a date 18 years after the date of birth shown by said certificate. If you do not do this affidavit by 18, they are going to consider you a minor. Even if you are 65 and you've never done this, you are considered a minor. And so, if you go to another country that is a part of the Hague Convention, they're looking at you as an adopted child from the U.S. subcorporation to Japan's subcorporations. You see how that works? You must declare that you are able to handle your own business. If you don't handle your own business, guess what? Someone else is going to handle it for you. All of your finances and affairs. This is how you avoid probate. You must do this process. Highly important. Now let's look at a list of the non-Hague countries, because you're going to use one of these to go on your cover sheet for the birth certificate authentication. I used Thailand. It's still here on the list. The number of countries have been reduced. They are diminishing. So you need to hurry and do this process before all of these countries go bye-bye, before they go into the Hague Convention Treaty. So you can use Thailand, you can use Taiwan, all of these. Go to lawrenceinstitutefornotaries.com and you'll find the countries. All right. Now, let's close some of these windows here. So after you have submitted your document to the Secretary of State, this is going to be sent back to you with his seal, saying that he approves the registrar's signature on your birth certificate. Okay? And just for fun, let's look at this for a second. We know that according to this law, location of a debtor, it says that a debtor who is an individual is located at the individual's principal residence. This is why I never place where I live on any of my documents. It's not on my driver's license. It's not on my foreign driver's license. Not on my library card. No, I keep that. All of my mail goes to a separate place, and it's not a family member's place. I have private boxes. Or let's see, number 2, a debtor that is an organization, LLC, corporation, and organization also means individual, and has only one place of business is located at its place of business. Do you see that? If you only have one place of business, talking about primary residence, they're going to consider that the location of a place of business because that address is inside of their ZIPs, their zoning, Internal Revenue District. But let's go down to H. It says the location of the United States is located in the District of Columbia. Now this is in between Maryland and Virginia. If I go to Virginia, I can find the United States Corporation Company. Click on that. It says that it's still active. And here we are. Here are the new owners of the corporation, or officers. The president is Rodman Ward. The vice president is George Massey, and the CFO is E.J. Dealey. And they're all based out of Delaware. Why? Delaware is known as the first state, and it is one of the best states to have discretionary trust. So they are hiding other members of the trust for this corporation in Delaware. I believe if you go to Delaware's website and you try to make an account and try to pull up their information, you still can't get in, even if you pay the fee. Trust me, I've tried. There are companies, corporations, and corporations behind other corporations before you can get to the actual door to reveal the veil, and for good reason. Okay, you can look at the same thing for Maryland. Here we go, the United States Corporation Company. Principal office is in Baltimore, Maryland. This is the address. However, that's just one, and they barely give you any information. Let's look at the filing history here. So you can go in and find additional information if you want to, but I say Maryland and Virginia because we have the Catholic crest here. This is Mary's land, and DC, Columbia, is in between Mary's land and Virginia. Virgin, the Virgin Mary, is in between, and they gave birth to a corporation that is running everything here in North America. Okay, so that's interesting. Now, I talked about a creditor's process. Okay, a creditor's process, a legal process. We're going to look at UCC 8-112. This is a creditor's legal process. I talked about the trust having the right to utilize that certificate of title. If you go down to section D, it says the interest of a debtor in a certificated security, that's the birth certificate, for which the certificate is in the possession of a secured party, that's the trust, or in an uncertificated security, this is the social security number, registered in the name of a secured party, or a security entitlement maintained in the name of a secured party may be reached by a creditor by legal process upon the secured party. So, if your trust is the creditor of these securities, no other agency, such as the IRS, court systems, can come after the trust property, because the trust owns the title to everything, and it starts with the birth certificate. Okay, so you must get that. We're authenticating because, and quite honestly, if you go to the very final page of your authentication process, they're going to give you this seal here from the Department of State, and they give you the laws that backs up what we're doing right here at the bottom. I'm going to pull up some of these laws right now, and they tell you, here's one of them, 28 U.S.C. 1733. Let's go down to B. Properly authenticated copies or transcripts of any books, records, papers, or documents of any department or agency of the United States shall be admitted in evidence equally to the originals. You see, this birth certificate is a certificate of the original. The original is called a certificate of live birth. This is just a certification of that. So we have to make this on par with the original in order to say we have a certificate of title to give to the trust. Okay, so when you fully authenticate on every level of government, you have now made this on par with the original. So with mines, I went to the Secretary of State. As you see, he authenticated James Green. Okay, and they did this on the 4th day of December 2017. This is based out of Sacramento. capital of California. And this was done by, I believe his name was Alex Padilla at the time. I took just this page and this page, and I sent it to the Department of State. How do we do that? Right here. You're going to Google Department of State Authentication DS4194. Okay, now I have to show you this. Let's look at the form. This is the cover form that you use. You place your name here in that format. Last, first, middle. You do not need to place a phone number. You're going to place, here it is, USA, and then give your address. It says, are you submitting this request on behalf of another individual? You select no. Skip all this. Delivery method, you want self-addressed, stamped envelope. Shipping address, same as above. Click this box. The country, here's where you put Taiwan, Thailand, or Uganda, whatever you selected from that list. Number of documents is 1. The type of document you're going to select, birth certificate. All right, now here total number is 1. Cost, it used to be $8. It used to be, but now if we go back, you'll see that just recently they had to increase the amount as of COVID-19, and it could take up to 2 to 3 weeks. The new fee for authentication as of July 15th is $20. Okay, so you would actually put $20, and you're going to mail this document right here. This entire detail is the address. Okay, once you mail that with your money order, with the self-addressed envelope, sealed envelope, you will get this. This is your annex number, and this annex number is connected to that certificate of title. It's connected to this registration number here. So what happens? You have now annexed your certificate of title out of the jurisdiction of the United States Corporation into your trust. Your trust now has full faith and credit to utilize this certificate. This means you have the true title. So when the IRS comes and says, hey, such and such, you didn't pay this U.S. debt years ago, or you messed up on this 1040 form, the trust can now come in with its certificate of title and its lien and dismiss all affairs associated with the first, middle, last name, because that trust owns that corporation now. No longer does the United States Corporation Trust own first, middle, last. Now it's the Express Trust owns first, middle, last. It is a beneficial owner. So once you get this back, the last thing that you must do, like the law says in Minnesota Rule 220, it says you need to place an affidavit. And they pretty much gave you the entire affidavit. It's this entire thing with some minor tweaks. Here's what it is. This is what I wrote. This is what I have done. Come this day, I, last, first, middle, under declaration of whatever the name of your express trust, fully acknowledge the registrar of titles is authorized to receive. It's this entire thing we just read. Okay? You'll get to this point here. It says, I hereby gift, transfer, and convey. Let me back up a little bit. I add it right here. Furthermore, properly authenticated copies or transcripts of any books, records, papers. You see where I got that from. It makes it on par with the original. And then I said, I hereby gift, transfer, and convey this certificate of title to the secured party known as whatever that is, and it shall remain perpetual, everlasting, forever. There being nothing further, I hereby declare, under penalty of perjury under the laws of the United States of America, not United States alone, United States of America. We're talking about the Republic and the Confederacy, that the foregoing is true and correct. You sign here, you date, make sure you get this thing notarized. So your notary is going to give you a certificate of acknowledgement. Okay? Of course, you remove this as well. So you're going to get that notarized, and you will attach it to the full birth certificate authentication. Okay? Now, we know that the U.S. is a corporation. Here is another law that's a part of that authentication. It is Rule 44, proving an official record. I'm going to go down to this section here. Foreign record. In general, each of the following evidences of a foreign official record or an entry in it that is otherwise admissible, the record or a copy that is attested by an authorized person and is accompanied either by a final certification of genuineness or by a certification under a treaty or convention to which the United States and the country where the record is located are parties. Okay. So, authenticating the birth certificate is straightforward. It's very simple. You want to remove it from the jurisdiction of this company. So go in that order. First, order your birth certificate from your county or vital statistics. If it's coming from the county directly, you need to get it exemplified. The process of exemplification. The clerk of that court or office will give you a seal. You then take that with your birth certificate and send it to the Secretary of State. They will authenticate it. It's either going to be an apostille or some type of certification with their seal. Then you take all three of those documents and you send it to the Department of State using that DS form 4194. Let them authenticate the entire process and send it back to you, and it will be upon a seal. It's going to be riveted in the corner, so you cannot break it apart. Now, what do you do with it? You place your affidavit on there, and you keep it inside your personal file. You will never, ever, ever take this out and give it to anyone, except for one thing. I forgot to mention this. How I travel, I don't provide IDs. I use my authenticated birth certificate. That is the real ID. You can fly with an authenticated birth certificate and give them a debit card or a credit card that matches the name. And you can fly all day without having the real ID driver's license and putting yourself into that jurisdiction all over again, and without using a passport. I fly domestically with those two things. I do have a passport, but I like to do it. See, it's not about face recognition. You have to understand why TSA has come about. When did TSA come about? Right after 9/11. So, we know that the numbers on that passport are bond numbers, just like the numbers on the birth certificate. When they scan it, they're not looking at your face. They don't care about that. It's all about you're going from one state to another, or one county to another, one city to another, and you're entering jurisdictions. They have to take an account of that. Let's say you are from Fort Lauderdale, Miami, and you're going to Cuba. Well, they take your passport or your driver's license, they scan it, and they run a bond. In case you go to that new location, which is a part of the Hague Convention, you go there and you decide to rob a bank, or you pass away. Well, now they have the records to go ahead and process the death certificate, or they have the records to go ahead and process another bond so that you can do time for the crime that you've committed. It's all about Securities and Exchange Commission. They are exchanging bonds back and forth for everything that we do. So I give them the birth certificate, and they do not ask me to provide any form of ID. The ID I give them is a bank card. So you can keep it to that. It's up to you if you want to go that route. It's very simple to use. You don't need a real ID. You don't need a picture ID to get on a plane. So, with that being said, that is how you authenticate your birth certificate. You're making sure that you place your trust as the actual creditor. And in law, there is only what's called the secured party. There is no such thing as secured party creditor. That process does not work. It's never worked. Stay away from it. With that being said, I will see you in the next one. Contact me if you have any questions throughout the process. I will assist you as best as I can. Take care.